wanted to like make it intimate, like cram you all in.
Yeah, it's cool.
Or you get cheesesteak.
Who's interested in job in real estate? Take one of these, or maybe come up and take one of these. This is from Cushman Wakefield. I think, who was it? Ryan's not here. He competed. I think they ended up hiring like a Cal Poly person. But this is the, take a picture of this. This is the guy you want to contact. Nicole. And Joey, weren't you interested in real estate too? Who else was interested in real estate? Raise your hand. Okay, so you want to go meet with these guys. So just come up and take one. And then could you do me a favor and fill out this evaluation form? Mason, I know you've already filled this out 3 times. But
What's that?
about the finance club evaluation form. You guys can fill that out and make sure you give it back to me at the end of the class. Okay, I appreciate it. I have you guys all in the system. What we're going to do is, we're going to do for the finance club, we're going to do, actually, Elizabeth, why don't you tell us what we're going to do? Mason, you retired, so let's give Mason a round of applause for being our president. Always more than happy to throw you under the bus first, Mason. So, Elizabeth, why don't you tell us quickly, introduce yourself and your new VP about the finance club. This finance club is awesome.
All right, so I'm Elizabeth.
You can stand up.
I'm Elizabeth Jerome. I'm the president of the finance club, and this is Myra, our vice president. And basically, the finance club, anyone's welcome to join, any majors, but we're really focused on connecting you with internships. So if you want a job, come join the finance club, and we specifically will have certain people come and talk to y'all and connect you with internships. We also have one big event, kind of on the DL though, but
I'll tell the detail.
okay.
You go first.
Wait, do you want me to tell them?
I'll tell them.
Okay, perfect.
You're the
But
fearless
anyway,
leader.
Yeah, join the finance club. It's really good and amazing, and you build a network.
So what we'll do is we're going to do small individual events, probably during the break time, during the 1 to 2 slot on Wednesdays. We'll get AXA Insurance Company in here. They actually sponsored us. You can find my material. They sponsored us for the SIE exam. Anybody familiar with the SIE exam? Sam aced that exam, right? You're done, aren't you?
Yeah.
Done. Anybody else take it? Anybody else interested in careers in investment banking, private equity, public equity, equity research, investment advisory, any of that stuff? No? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. Then the first step is the SIE exam. handouts. I'll pass this around. If I come across it, I'll pass it out. The SIE is the first thing. They split the Series 7, which was the registered representative exam, into 2 this year, which makes it easier for all of us to be able to just take the exam. And Access sponsored us for $116. We go through their portal, and we can register for the SIE. Once you take the SIE and you pass the SIE, then you can go on and take the Series 7, but the SIE you can do without sponsorship. So it's like a mini CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst designation. It's the first step. Once you pass the SIE, then you go work for a broker-dealer and investment advisor. You take the second half of the Series 7, boom, you're done with that leg. Then you got to take the Series 66 or the 63 or the 65. It's usually the 66, which is your registered investment advisor license. With the 7 and the 66, along with the state of California life insurance license, along with the long-term care continuing education and the variable annuity continuing education, you can basically engineer and advise your clients on basically any strategy and any product as an investment advisor, which is pretty awesome. So we're probably gonna get Chris Worthington in here to talk about that opportunity, and then they recruit directly from us. They have internships, paid internships, which I think are pretty freaking awesome too. And that's pretty much all we need is that. Here, this is what the SIE book is. Sam doesn't have to look at it because he already passed it. But if you want to take a look at what it is and what the content is, I would go ahead and do that too. And I'll just be handing a bunch of stuff out to you. So what I want to do with this class, who took my investments class? Okay, perfect. And then who took 123? Do that too. Okay, excellent. So you're going to have to help some people who haven't taken the class. Okay, you're going to have to get in teams. I would get in teams of 3. You can work together in sub-teams together. I don't care. There's a lot, as you know, if you've taken my 123 and my 136, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of project work. It's the same philosophy, okay? It's also a flipped class in that, I kind of stay away from more of the traditional roles of being the orator and the sole speaker that bores you to death, using PowerPoint presentations so that you only basically obtain 10% of the content by flipping the class and making you responsible for basically teaching a significant portion of the class. And I become the managing director and work with you on an individual basis and individually on your projects. It becomes more of a real life type of situation as opposed to an academic exercise and my view, myopic ways of teaching more Socratic. I'm more of a behavioralist, an application person. Everything that you do should be hands-on work. Either you're writing hands-on or you're working hands-on in building or using templates that you've already built. A lot of you have either, well, most of you haven't done it, but a lot of my students have already built a lot of the templates that you're going to be using. Some of them are going to be familiar, particularly those who took the investments class. You're going to pull out that template and you're going to get rid of all the US companies, and you're going to build a global portfolio. And I would even be interested in seeing what the performance of the global portfolio is compared to the US portfolio that you built. And since I have a lot of people who took the investments class, we might as well go ahead and do, and I didn't have this the last 2 years when I taught the class. I have more investments people here so we can do more stuff because you guys are all trainers. Is the efficient frontier, the Markowitz approach, the tracing out of the efficient frontier. When we built the US portfolio, last time when we traced out the efficient frontier, I would say go ahead, pull that stuff out, and then save another version of that Excel spreadsheet, and now build a global portfolio and look and see what the efficient frontier does, and compare the efficient frontier contours to each other. Now we're starting to do some real application, okay? And for those who don't understand and don't, I'm I'm going too fast. You need to partner with some people who have taken my class so that you can leverage their experience so that you can come up to a higher level very quickly. Okay? So I'll let you guys do your teams. There's going to be 9 teams. Okay, 9 teams of 3, and then we're going to hack out and we're going to start assigning the chapters. Okay, and usually the way this works, and I believe was the investments class was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? Yeah, so it's perfect. So Mondays are labs, Tuesdays are problems, and Fridays are presentations. So you just, once we get into a rhythm, you know, I'll hand out the homeworks with the solutions, you study from them, you come back next Wednesday, first thing you do is you hit the board and you start putting the problems up on the board, and then we all go around and we present the problems. So it's not like me working through all the problems, you're working through a lot of the problems. And then what I'll do is I will assign you a chapter per week. If you look at the syllabus, it basically lays out the team responsibility for the PowerPoint presentations. They're all pretty straightforward PowerPoint presentations until you start getting into the swaps and other, you know, more sophisticated techniques, but even that's not rocket science. You could probably fudge, you know, through that with my help if you work with me. So it gives you basically a week or more to be able to study the PowerPoint presentations and then to come in and make the presentation on the chapter without reading from the PowerPoint presentation. Because what most students do is they blow it off at the last minute or blow it off totally, and then they'll come into class or they'll meet up before class to hack out the presentation, to assign it to who's going to do what, but they've never looked at the PowerPoint presentation. They didn't read the book. They didn't do any outside research, and they didn't edit the presentation. So they come in and they just read from the PowerPoint presentation. And everybody gets bored and starts getting on their phone and start looking at their golf swings and their, you know, the rugby scores and stuff like that. I want to try to avoid a lot of that stuff. Okay? So let's try to, you know, add some value to it. And then what I've done is I don't believe in PowerPoint, in multiple choice exams. Professor Sousa's teaching, blah, 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 he talks, okay, great. He hands out, you know, what's gonna be on the exam, you go study, maybe. And then you come in and you take the exam and you go, you know, you're great, or you go up in flames, and then we move on to the next, you know, step. We go on to the midterm, we go on to the final, and basically by the end of the semester, if you were a really good student, and you studied, and you were cognizant, you had time management, you basically did a really good job in the exam in the course, and you're done. But other people who have other commitments and maybe not self-motivated and, you know, don't do really good on exams because they have exam anxieties, a lot of them go, or maybe they have learning disabilities, or they're just too busy, or relationships or family or whatever. It's happened, you know, the 5 years that I've been teaching, 20. Those people I like to focus on too, and that's why I've designed the courses to basically lay out the content along with the case study questions that I've designed myself to basically move you through content. And everybody knows who was taking me is you basically are assigned, you know, content, you're assigned case studies, you work through the assigned content in case studies, you put together these beautiful deliverable packages. This was Tyler. Does anybody know Tyler Ocampo? Yeah, he's an overachiever, isn't he? I put this thing on the scale, you know, this thing was like 2 pounds, right? So obviously Tyler's gonna get an A, right? Some of the ones that come in that are only like 4 ounces, you know, they're not gonna get an A. They're gonna have to go back and start adding some poundage, you know, to the deliverable to get the pound, you know, the minimum weight requirement up, you know, so that then I can, you know, review it and then be able to post comments, give it back. You basically give it back to me with the comments, you go back, you rework the deliverable, you rework everything until it's presentable, and then I'll take it and look at it, and then I keep it, okay, to be able to show others the degree of quality and the degree of effort that's put into these things. Actually, in this class, and in investments too, this is really accumulation of the whole semester. So this is just one deliverable, this is rework and resubmissions after comments. You know, so that by the end of the semester, they have their deliverable package. And if they want it back, I'll give it back to you. Mason, if you want yours back, I'll give it back to you. Because you may want to use it to show if you have no work experience. These actually are really good tools to be able to show the type of work and the quality and the effort and the work ethic that you have to be able to show somebody that, yeah, I'm a hard worker, I can, you hire me, I'll do the same thing for you. Okay? That's a lot of stuff. So you've seen the syllabus before, okay? It basically has all of the resources there available to you. If you need SDS or you need any other special accommodations, please let me know. If you're an athlete and you're going to be gone, make sure that you review the videotapes, and talk to your peers on any work that you've missed. It's all pretty straightforward. I do have the course website that I've laid out. There's one student that I had in investments last year that did a really great job. And what I'll do, here's the course website. And this will be one of the main communication devices that I'll use to push content out to you. You'll get probably a lot of emails from you and announcements and postings through the website. I'm a text person. So you can text me anytime you want. You can call me anytime you want. You call and text me. I'm really responsive. I'll get back to you like really soon. Okay, and I'll look at your stuff, and you can come by my office. I'll look at your stuff, give you some feedback, so that we're all hitting at basically the same level. So here's the course website. These are my office hours. Here are some lectures that I did last semester on wealth advisory and real estate, and I think there is even some of the career panel events that we did for the finance club. I put those up there too, just I thought some of you might be interested in that stuff. And then what I'll start to do right up here at the beginning of the course website, I will be putting a course log that basically lists in chronological order from most recent to oldest, all the videos, that I will be doing in class. So there's really no excuse not to keep up on the class. The only students that I've noticed over the years that are kind of clueless is they basically don't show up to class, they don't take notes, they don't talk to their peers, and they don't watch the videos. And then they come to me and they say, Professor Souza, I have no idea because I started on the exam like last night, and there's no way I'm going to be able to get through all of that material, within 24 hours. It's like, well, I gave you a month. I give you a month. All right, so here's the course. I'm just being a little devil's advocate. So here's the course log from last semester if you're interested in looking at that stuff. Here's the International Stock Portfolio template. That's actually the presentation. Here's the actual Excel spreadsheet. I'm just going to move through this stuff. What you should do is get in your teams of 3 as soon as possible, and then write we'll have you write them on the board so that you don't forget what team you're in. That happened last semester in my 123. Students were coming in 2-3 weeks before the class ended, and they're like, Professor Souza, I don't remember what team I'm in. Like, are we doing chapter 17 or chapter 21? It's like, I don't know. It's like, we already gave that to you. Should remember that stuff. So here's the Excel spreadsheet. And it's really, really simple. And then again, for those of you who have taken my class, the investments class, you need to help everybody else. I think everybody, because we didn't do it in 123. So you need to make sure that if you're having problems, you exchange your contact information so that if you have any problems, I'll be a resource, but the students around you will be resources too. And actually the majority of this class, and really all of this class, are really top students in all of my classes. So you all got A's. You guys all got A's, okay? Because you worked really hard. So here is the template. You want to download the template. Right here, Master Target Portfolio. This is where this will be easy for a lot of you because you've already built the U.S. portfolio. Okay. Now you're going to build a global portfolio. Do you know the difference between a global portfolio and an international portfolio? Anybody? Difference between international and global. Yeah, yes, go for it, just yell it out.
Global has US and international.
Other way around.
Oh.
Okay, so you're gonna build a global portfolio. I don't want any US companies in here. Okay, so try to build a pure global portfolio. So you're gonna add in the name, the industry, the ticker. You're gonna do just like we did last time. You're gonna add in the current stock price. You're gonna start with $1 million. Did we do 100 million in investments?
Yeah.
You can, however you want to do it, 100 million, I don't care, okay? And then once you put in the stock price here, what's going to happen is it's going to, right over here, we're going to use total revenue, but you could use EBITDA if you wanted to. I wouldn't use earnings because earnings can be impacted by depreciation. So I would use probably revenue or EBITDA, you know, and this becomes the scaling factor right here. Has anybody heard of factor tilting, smart beta, ETFs, indexation, indexing, index, S&P 500? Anybody hear about the S&P 500? S&P 500, let's keep asking, S&P 500? Have you heard of the S&P 500? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What is the what's the weighting scheme? How are the factors tilted? How is the portfolio weighted? What is the metric? It's not revenue. What do you use for the S&P 500 to come up with the weights? What do you come up with?
Is it the market cap from the
You
day
got it.
before?
Yep. Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, it's the market cap. How do you calculate the market cap?
Price of the stock times the number of shares.
Keep going. Outstanding. Got it.
Outstanding, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, you S&P 500. You would basically put the market cap in here. You put in the stock price right there. Boom! It's going to calculate the weights right here, and from those weights right there, you're going to multiply the weights for the individual stocks by this whatever portfolio size is. It's going to kick out the value and your exposure by dollar amount within each of those individual stocks, divided by the current stock price is going to give you the number of shares. And the number of shares stays stagnant through the whole thing. Okay. Then what we do is in like a month from now, all we got to do is put in share price. 2 months from now, share price. 3 months from now, share price. And what it's going to do is it's going to calculate the performance of the portfolio over the 1, 2, 3 months. And you're going to compare it. What are we going to compare to? If it's a global portfolio, this is a test question too, which probably not a lot of you know. What would I use as the benchmark index to calculate the alpha on your global portfolio? Anybody know what we would use? Would we use the S&P 500? Would I use the S&P 500? No. So you might want to write this down. There's an index called the FTSE index, Financial Times index. There's also called the MSCI. MSCI Global is another index. That's probably the one that I would use, the one that doesn't have the US in it. Okay. And could I use the ETF? If I had a MSCI Global, could I use the index? Could I use the index value? Could I use the ETF value? Could I use one or the other? Would it basically be the same, or would it be different? The ETF is based off of the MSCI index.
Yes.
Would they be highly correlated to each other?
Yes.
Which one would be more volatile? Which one would have a higher standard deviation of variance? The index or the ETF? What? The index or the ETF? Which one would be more volatile? Do ETF shares trade on an exchange, or are they just a reported index? Do the ETF shares trade on an exchange? Yes. Does the index trade on an exchange? The shares are tied to the index is tied to the shares. ETF shares are tied to the index, which are tied to the shares. Which one's gonna be more volatile, the ETF or the index? The ETF or the index? The index is tied directly to the shares. The ETF is tied directly to the index, which is directly tied to the shares. Which one's gonna be more volatile? The ETF, because it's subjected to systematic risk or market risk, because the shares actually trade on an exchange. So I'm gonna be going over all this logic with you again and again and again. Okay, so here are some examples of some MSCI. I just pulled all of these out. You may want to take pictures or you can grab one. These are what you're going to be using. I use iShares, but you can use Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, to pull out ETFs, that are basically benchmarked as some global index or some kind of global portfolio strategy, both the large cap, mid cap, small cap. I could do a large cap, mid cap, small cap global portfolio, and I could look at what the like Vanguard, iShares, BlackRock. Anybody heard of BlackRock? BlackRock over there in Howard Street, I don't know, like 30 trillion or something ridiculous in assets under management. So these reports give you a good idea of the key information that you'll need, the types of portfolio strategies, not only in equities on a global basis, large cap, mid cap, small cap, but also bond funds, fixed income. In this class, you'll be building a bunch of portfolios. Okay, you'll do the static portfolio first. Okay, global. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand out an exam, and the exam's already up on the website. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to build another portfolio by hand, and you're going to have to come up with some kind of factor weights. Okay, factor weighting, factors, beta, smart beta, beta, indexing. This is the new thing, right? This is the new thing out there in the capital markets. So the question then becomes in these factors, these beta portfolios, these smart beta portfolios. The question is, what is the factor? Here we're using revenue. The S&P 500 and the MSCI index is using market caps. What we're going to use is you could come up with your weights for your portfolio based off of global GDP, or you could come up using exports as the weighting factor, or gross trade flows as the weighting factor, or population, or employment. You could use, these are macro factors that you're using to do the weights. Okay. And this portfolio is individual stocks. The one that you're going to do on your exam is going to be country weighted. Okay. So it's country weighted by country macro factors. And you're going to do an equity portfolio, and you're going to do a bond portfolio. Equity portfolio, fixed income portfolio. You're going to be reading a bunch of the reports that I've produced in the past. Okay. I've written a ton on business-government relations. If we're going to expand and buy in any country, first thing I'm going to look at is what is their political, economic, institutional framework. Is it a parliamentary system? There's not very many representative democracies out there. Is it more socialistic, authoritarian, communist? I mean, that sets basically the institutional frameworks for not only how politics work and policies are enacted, but also how the economy is actually governed and how much of it is private and public sector. So China is extremely different compared to the US and the UK. So I teach you that within these exercises. Foreign direct investment. If I'm looking to enter and invest in a country first, obviously, then I'm going to look at the industries, then I'm going to look at the companies that I'm going to invest in. Am I going to be interested in foreign direct investment, capital flows coming into the country? If I'm looking to build a global portfolio, I'm going to figure out the country allocations first, then the industry allocations, then the individual companies I'm going into. Do I care about foreign direct investment that flows into a country?
Yes.
Absolutely. Because foreign direct investment is basically the leading indicator, all factors in building a regression model, a forecast model for foreign direct investment. Basically, it has all of the factors that drive foreign direct investment within the country. Okay? And if the country is well stable politically, and has private property rights, and has a capitalistic institutional framework to it, and is growing faster than industrialized or newly industrialized countries, people are going to want to invest in those countries, in those industries, and in those individual companies because they believe that the rates of return are going to be higher because the countries are growing fast. And because they're growing so fast, they don't have enough domestic savings or established institutions or capital markets to be able to use the domestic capital to grow their economy. So they need to import capital from around the world, and foreign direct investment is the #1 leading indicator that basically tells you that this country has opportunity, because if a bunch of people are putting capital into this country, then it's probably a good place to put money into the country. So foreign direct investment. So you'll be reading an article that I wrote on that. I ran the regressions. I found the factors. I did the research. So it's just to get an idea. I'll also be testing you using the statistical pre-tests and the exams. If you were an analyst, a currency strategist at a major bank, hedge fund, corporation, whatever it was, and you were tasked to forecast the currency, the local currency, appreciation or depreciation going forward 3 to 5 years, how would you build that model? How would you build a foreign direct investment model? How would you build the currency forecast model, and what would be the factors that would be in that model? How would you go about finding those factors? We've gone through it in 123. We went through it in 136. We've gone through it over and over again. How do you build a model? Okay. So we'll go through that too, and go through those factors. Oh, memos. Now you can for those of you who have taken 123 and 136, you've gone through the memo writing stage. What I find really fascinating is that students totally forget how to write memos by the time they take my class again the second or third time around. Okay, so here are some examples. Once you take some pictures of them, what you have to do is you have to turn the psychology around. It's not U.S. domestic stocks prices that you're forecasting, it's global. Okay, it's global. Oil, you're not using West Texas Intermediary, you're using Brent, okay, which basically the majority of that comes out of Saudi Arabia. You're looking at global interest rates. Okay, you're trying to forecast global oil prices. You're looking at oil prices. Again, oil is already global, so that's fine. And then the other is gold. Right? So you're not looking at gold from really domestic demand or domestic precautionary balances, and holding gold to as a hedge against inflation or devaluation of the currency, but you're looking at gold from a global standpoint, okay? Which is, the dynamics are very different. I mean, currently there's about $35 trillion on central bank balance sheets. Most of these global countries have levered up their balance sheets and have issued massive amounts of government sovereign bonds. And most of those bonds have been bought by their central banks. So these banks have no credibility and no independence left, just like ours, because now they're basically an arm of the Treasury or arm of the government, which is extremely dangerous. Okay? And if that's the case, and we're looking at potentially hyperinflation or higher inflation in the future, people are going to want to hold gold. And countries are going to want to hold gold in reserve to anchor their currencies from devaluing and depreciating rapidly due to hyperinflation, due to the over-accommodation at the monetary and the fiscal policy side. Now, am I talking completely over your heads? Completely over your heads. I don't even know what the heck Professor Susan is talking about. Right? But by the end of the semester, you'll totally get it, because this is the way I talk. Okay? I try to dumb it down. I try to make it easy. I just can't do it. It's just, I need to talk extremely precisely, and you can review the videos. But I need to talk at a very high level and bring in very sophisticated concepts, because this is the level in which I communicate with my clients, both international clients, domestic clients. They've all gone to, got an MBA, they all have finance, econ degrees, they all have business backgrounds. They totally understand a lot of this stuff. So I need to, and if you have any questions, and you want me to slow down, or for clarification purposes, that's your responsibility to raise your hand or say, Professor Souza, can you expand on that? Don't get upset at me for moving on and keep talking at this level when you can't like stop me to clarify, okay? So yeah, it's your responsibility to say, Professor Souza, can you clarify a little bit more, okay? And I highly encourage you. I highly encourage that, okay? So, let's get any questions so far? We're probably going to run out of time. So here's the statistical pretest. So what I do with the statistical pretest, for the people who haven't taken my class, you have to work with the other students to get through the pretest and get through the quiz. Because basically in this class in investments, it's basically the pretest plus the quiz in 123. Okay? So basically I'm having you go back and review a lot of that stuff. You do the best you can, we'll go over it again in class, but you gotta go through it again and again and again to learn it, okay? And we forget stuff. So the only reason why I know this stuff so well is because I've been thinking about it for 30 years, okay? But you gotta go over it over and over and over again. And I think, Sam, I think you said something, I don't know if it was for me personally, probably not, but it was probably for others, you know, in the program and other professors. But you said during the interviewing process, when they were asking you questions on standard deviations and variances, and current events, you felt like you were totally prepared and you could totally communicate with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why we go over this over and over. So here's the statistical pretest. Here's all the resources. If you already kept your statistical pretest, then you're in a better position. Right here are all of the papers that we're going to be using. I pretty much wrote most of them, maybe all of them, in international relations and international corporate finance. And in the book, I have actually a couple old books if somebody wants to borrow them. And then this is the book. The book is pretty much the same as the last. They really didn't do much to update it. I think the book's okay. We'll be doing the book. I'll hand out some problems that we'll do on the board, and then you and I will be presenting the chapters once a week. We'll do a couple chapters every Friday, you know. So, and again, they're not rocket science. You know, it's a book, right? And then if you're interested in other areas of global stock markets, that would come up. Take a picture of that. If you're interested in international currencies, these are a little out of date. I got international banking. These are my favorites right here, the world stock markets. Oh, I forgot to tell you, you're going to be assigned an individual stock market, or you're going to pick an individual stock market, and you're going to track it, and you're going to come in, and you're going to tell us about it. You know, where did the major stock market index close? Why did it go up and down? If you're interested in, you know, Johannesburg and South Africa and Sydney, Australia, if you're interested in Christchurch, New Zealand, if you're interested in Sao Paulo, Brazil, Tel Aviv in Israel, and out of London, you know, pick an international stock market, okay, and start tracking it. If you're interested in these emerging market stock markets out of Thailand or Singapore or Indonesia, come up and take pictures of the chapters. What we'll also be talking about is securitization and privatization. Okay, if you're Poland, you know, after the wall came down in '89, basically Poland, you know, moved from basically being in Comecon tied to Russia. They basically entered NATO and were brought into the EU. Well, first thing they needed to do was basically privatize all of their government industries, government-dependent industries and government corporations through privatization, through securitization to basically build a stock market to be able to channel capital globally into their economy, into the industries, into the companies, to get them to basically grow because their economies are not very big and they don't have enough capital domestically to be able to fund the growth of their industries and their domestic companies. So this is extremely fascinating in my view. We'll also talk about foreign exchange and capital flows. Foreign exchange and capital flows. Capital flows come in, you convert from your currency to the foreign currency. There's higher demand for the foreign currency, therefore the foreign currency is going to appreciate as capital flows move in. Most currencies are floating, managed float systems. They basically float within a range. The Chinese yuan or renminbi used to be pegged. Now it's a floating, pretty much floating currency because they're trying to become a currency reserve to compete against the dollar. So you'll be thinking now about currency risk and fluctuations and how do you manage currency risk using forwards, futures, option contracts, swap contracts to hedge off your currency risk. Because if you're a multinational corporation, you're going to have to start thinking about it. You're going to have a currency hedging department, within your treasury department and in your company to be able to handle basically hundreds of billions of dollars of multi-currency transactions across the globe. Just think about Facebook and Salesforce and Intel and all of those large major multinational corporations. And just imagine what the finance people are doing within the currency hedging division and the treasury, cash management divisions within the company. Jared, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry. No.
Okay, that's cool. I like your hair.
Thanks.
Okay, so here's a lot of the research. Here's the quiz. The quiz is basically, what I did was I took the quiz from the pre-test and then turned it into a global. So this one is basically just domestic. It's the same stuff that you've seen before. And then I turned it into global. In the investments course, you've been exposed to this. Because what are interest rates? What's the yield curve look like in Germany, in Japan, on the short end of the yield curve, of the term structure? Are interest rates positive,
Negative.
zero, or negative?
Negative.
Negative. And actually, the Federal Reserve is talking about going negative. That's huge. Okay. So in the syllabus, in the first part of the syllabus, I have a whole lecture on yield curves, because yield curves are basically the representation of monetary policy on a global basis. And actually, in the exam, on the quiz, what you're going to do is you are going to go back, and you're going to go back 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, and you are going to trace out the yield curves for 5 different countries. So you can see the shifts in the yield curve from positive to negative, back to zero, and it looks like they're going to be going negative again. Okay. So we're at an inflection point. It's been 10 years since the financial crisis. The monetary policy authorities and the fiscal policy authorities have levered up their balance sheets. We're now at a critical juncture. Germany looks like it's going into a recession or just missed a recession. Italy is in a recession. Spain's probably in a recession. Portugal's in a recession. Argentina, hyperinflation, recession. Brazil, political chaos, recession. Okay, so now we're seeing kind of the canaries in the coal mine around us, circling. Okay, the question is, when will we go? Okay, so what I did was I redid the statistical pretest test and then turned it into a global. Okay, so I'm trying to make that shift. What else do we do in this class? In your teams, you're going to be picking a bank. Okay, the first time I taught this class 2-3 years ago, we did Deutsche Bank. Okay, we looked at Deutsche Bank. Anybody following Deutsche Bank? Deutsche Bank is as big as like Lehman Brothers. Okay, was before the financial crisis. What happened to Lehman Brothers?
Too leveraged.
What?
They're too leveraged.
And what happened to them?
Imploded.
And what happened to the economy and the capital markets? Exactly. Deutsche is one of the transaction centers. A lot of transactions, both global derivatives, and currency, and equities, and fixed income, are cleared through Deutsche Bank. What happens if Deutsche goes up in flames?
We go up in flames.
We go up in flames. Okay. So right now, the German government's trying to negotiate a buyout, a merger between Deutsche and Commerzbank. And I don't know if Commerce wants to take that on, because I could take them down too, which basically means that the bank is going to have to be nationalized. And if it's not nationalized, it's already insolvent, and if it goes down, it's gonna take everybody down with it. So we did Deutsche Bank, and I had Hunter Tully. Does anybody know Hunter? Does anybody know Hunter? Yeah, Hunter and I were screaming at each other, okay? Because he couldn't get to the current stock price valuation using EBITDA per share or earnings per share. The stock was so messed up that we were using like 400, 500 multiples just to get to the current stock price. And that's when it was trading at 10, and now I think it's trading at like 6 or something. It might even be up a little bit because they know that the bank's gonna get nationalized and there's gonna be basically an engineered M&A. But he was going crazy. And then what I did last semester is I said, okay, you guys pick the banks. And I had people doing Credit Suisse and UBS, Deutsche Bank, doing some Japanese banks. When you start doing the analysis, all of you have done, the bank analysis in my classes, either a Goldman or JP Morgan that we did. Those banks were easy. It's like shooting ducks in a barrel or doing, apple bobbing in a barrel. It was easy to value those things. These banks are not easy to value. Most of them are in really bad condition. So if we do go into a global recession, you're going to see some major bank failures, which will just contage around the world. I know it's such an uplifting class, isn't it? It's just reality. So you'll be picking a bank, okay? You may want to start looking at a bank now. Okay, find your exchange, find your bank, okay, and then get in teams of 3 to start working on doing some of the due diligence. And I'll bring in some examples of the product that the students produced over the last couple of years. Anybody want to take a look at some of the deliverable packages, what they look like? How much time do I have? 15 more minutes, okay. So there are some examples of some of the best ones. Actually, Justin's was pretty good too. Was he in your team? No, okay, no, that's great. That was investments. So here are some examples. Justin's is really good, Tyler's really good. This kind of gives you an idea of the scope of the work that you're going to be working on. If you work in teams, it's a lot easier. If you try to do my classes by yourself, it's going to be really hard. Okay. So leverage your time, leverage your relationships. Here are examples of the, you're going to do 8 fact sheets. These are the fact sheets. Okay, I'll hand these around, take pictures of them. These are the fact sheets. You're going to do 2 industrialized or advanced economy stock market fact sheets. So you do 2 advanced or 2 industrialized countries, and then you'll do 2 emerging markets on the equity side. And then you'll do 2 advanced and 2 emerging on the fixed income side, on the bond side. Okay, so you'll have a good comparative analysis between industrialized and emerging, both on the equity and the fixed income side of the equation. So I'll give these out too. And then what you'll need to do, if you want to use these as templates, is you're going to have to take pictures of them and update the data. Okay. So there's that. Yes. Yeah. So since you already have them, it would be great to compare the performance, both from an alpha and maybe a Sharp or a return to risk ratio, the returns against the global portfolio. You can see. So because I have so many people from investments, we can do the comparison between the efficient frontiers on the global and the domestic, and then we can compare the performance of the passive portfolios from a global standpoint and a domestic. So you've already done it, so it's a matter of just putting it into your memo. I'll hand out the problems or the homeworks. The homeworks, most of them are pretty simple. Again, I'll give you the homeworks, you get the book, you study the answer, you study the question, you come in, you put it up on the board, you walk us through. Okay, you show us. Okay. What you may want to do is pass this book around. And on this page right here, take a picture of this. Right here on page 64 is a list of global stock markets. And then if you pick, you know, the Indonesian stock market, you may want to come over here and go through this emerging stock market book and take pictures of the chapter on the Indonesian stock market, and then go find some updated stuff on it, and be an expert, you know, in that stock market. Volume, major companies, price indexes, liquidity, volatility. Most of those international stock markets, if they're not established, are highly volatile, have illiquidity issues. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. How are we doing? 10 minutes? So here's the quiz. Take-home quiz exam solution. I haven't decided if I want to do take-home exam yet. Here's the developing stock markets midterm. Here's the foreign direct investment midterm. Here's the global stock market portfolio midterm. And again, the resources for all of that are right up here in here. I'll go through that stuff. Yeah, you can do the middle. No, actually, no. What you'll do is you'll print these out and you'll write them out. You don't have to go through them. And then just here's all the goals, objectives. Here's all your PowerPoint presentations right here. Movie review worksheet. You might do that. What you're going to do in this class for the final two is you're going to do a profile. I'll give you the questions on Kyle Bass. Actually, Kyle Bass was interviewed today on Bloomberg News, so you may want to Google that. You're going to do a whole profile on Kyle Bass. Kyle Bass basically made like $250 million shorting the mortgage market during the financial crisis, and has become the biggest critic of the over leverage and the excessive bond issuance, both at the sovereign and at the corporate level in both Japan and China. And those are two huge risk factors on a global basis. Because China's basically printed a ton of money. We don't even know the condition of their bank balance sheets, because they're not publicly traded. There's no real gap financing, so we can't do the securities analysis on them. They've basically bought and propped up all of their government-sponsored corporations, so we really don't know the true underlying condition of their corporate side. We don't really know the balance sheet of their central bank, because they lie about everything that they report about. So, but there's huge, massive amounts of debt in that marketplace. And same thing with the Japanese. And at some point in time, if you do not have enough money coming in, tax revenue coming in to service the interest on your sovereign debt, you're going to default, like the Greeks did and the Italians did and the Spanish did after the financial crisis. So the next big risk out there in the marketplace is sovereign default risks. And I'll be talking about all that stuff. There's lectures here on yield curves. We'll go through that. Here's the valuation work. I'll bring in some case studies and some examples of the pitch books that a lot of you are familiar with for the international banks. Okay. So my next question before we leave is, anybody interested in making a presentation on a chapter on Friday? Anybody? What? I heard something. I heard a squeak. Is either a mouse or a student clearing his throat. Let's see, where do I got it? February 18th, what's today, the 11th? And then, so what do we have? Oh, chapters 1, 2, and 3. Team 1, 2, 3. So why don't we put those teams? If you need a little bit more time, you know, I don't get really neurotic about this stuff at all. If you need more time, that's fine. I can always lecture more. But I think we have room for 9 teams. Put your names up here so I can take a picture of this. If you want to come up and just start writing everything. Yeah, a couple slides. Might as well just sign up for the chapter.
Yeah, whatever's fine with me. Yeah.
Johnny wants to be interviewed.
Might be nice to get it over with, but at the same time, like, there's a lot going on.
And then double check your schedule.
What you said? No. This is a lot.
Because you guys are now.
I mean, like, I think it would be nice, yeah. Everyone says it seems really overwhelming, but then it's fine.
Going to the
Right.
Just a lot of work.
Yeah. It seems to be more of a lot, so that's good. Yeah.
no, we can stop it.
I'm not gonna say it. No. There's a film thing going on in there, so I can't say that. I can't say what I'm thinking.
Honestly, I think I was like I went for every chapter and everything, so like I could have done that.
Once you do it that work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just double check the syllabus to make sure that your presentations on Friday. Anybody want to look at any of these emerging stock markets?
I'm on the way right now.
Anybody else want to borrow this?
Yeah.
Makes me want to
Really?
Either share with somebody.
No, yeah.
I'll hurt you.
Stay there.
Don't forget to take, oh, you can come by my office. Are you in this class?
I'm in the next one.
And then are you, who's on your team? So get a pen also. For example, finding a pen.
Check it out.
This stuff's pretty great.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping it's helpful.
It's in the first three presentations, teams, you can find some
Presentation control.
adding it? Are you adding it? Is it okay from your don't tell them.